When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Rewind to Raw, John Pollock, Wai Ting. What a show we have. How are you, Wai?
Doing all right, John. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I've got my water here. I don't know if it's going to last the whole show. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss. Might have to take a few sips.
It's always good to have spare waters, I find, around your recording booth.
It is essential sometimes to be able to talk for as long as we do, which today, in my update, I noted that tonight, it's the 5th straight day of shows for me and Wai, and then our man Neil fact-checked me, and I had skipped over the fact that last Wednesday, when we didn't have a Rewind to Dynamite, we had done a bonus show. So Wai, by this Thursday, which will be the next day you and I do not have a show, you and I will have completed 13 consecutive days of shows.
Oh my, wow. 2 straight weeks. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of wrestling. It's an industry that there's never a dull moment. That's for sure.
Well, I'm wondering if by the end of this, you'll be throwing me into a Jessamyn Duke head kick, and that'll be the end of our iconic friendship.
I hope you and I never find ourselves in an underground situation anywhere.
I don't know how the IIconics did find themselves in that underground situation.
Well, it's the end of the night.
They take a wrong turn somewhere and just end up in the freezer?
Maybe Shane just invited them.
Can I say that the subtle part I enjoy the most about Raw Underground each week is Shane McMahon doing the tee-up to Big Jordan, and the dude just shrugs his shoulders like, yeah, cool, these fights, that's great. I can't watch any of them. I'm just out here, Shane, that's great. Have fun, man. He just completely no-sells the enthusiasm, Shane. It's like, tonight we're going to see Titus and Jessamyn and Cruz take on Benjamin. He's like, yeah, okay. Door's open.
It's an easy role for the time being.
It's a much better role for Jordan than being the large ninja.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's dive into it. We have a lot of news items here to go through. Let's start with the most recent, and that is the news that came out tonight. That Mauro Ranallo and WWE have officially parted ways. Mauro, who has been off now for since TakeOver, which he missed. He was back in Vancouver, which from my understanding is where he still is. And this was, dealing with a family issue. His mother had been ill, and he put out a message today. I appreciate the opportunity I had to realize my childhood dream of working in sports entertainment, and I wish WWE well in the future. Now I want to direct my focus and devote my time to my other projects and my mental health, charitable activities, and the well-being of my mother and myself. Shortly thereafter, WWE confirmed his departure, stating that WWE and Mauro Ranallo have mutually and amicably agreed to part ways. Mauro's passion and enthusiasm left an indelible and exciting mark with WWE and its fans, and we wish him the best in his future endeavors. So that would mark the end of a relationship between WWE and Mauro Ranallo that does go back to him signing in near the end of 2015 and then having the run on SmackDown, which certainly ended in, certainly issues that many thought would be the end of Mauro with WWE and certain things that went on. Did come back, though it was very notable. He was then positioned in NXT and not on the main roster. And that ends his run with WWE. But it seems like it is a amicable split, as it's been described.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Because, certainly like any sort of absence, it really does make you wonder if there's anything else going on. But to know that it was amicable, it's a good thing. He'll definitely be missed, by the WWE audience and by the NXT audience. I mean, they had really made a habit of almost featuring the guy, either via through those cameras specifically put on him, and really just the Mamma Mia call at this point is really kind of iconic and like, you know, a signature of NXT's that'll certainly be missed.
Yeah, I mean, he had become the voice associated with that NXT product for coming up. You know, this was over 3 years that he had been down in NXT since June 2017. It sounds like he will be, you know, continuing his other duties with Showtime Championship Boxing, with Bellator. Could you see a scenario in the future that pro wrestling is something that he ever revisits and a product that might fit for Mauro? Maybe it's not something he's looking at it sounds like he is trying to take obligations off that he's probably got a very full plate of, but down the road, I mean, he's certainly a voice that is familiar with a lot of people, and I'm sure there's going to be interest from different companies, whether it be New Japan, that he has the history of calling on Access, or any other number of companies that might seek his interest. Could you see that happening?
I can definitely see it. Yeah, and as a fan, I certainly hope so, because, you know, of all the sports that Mauro does such a fantastic job of calling, you know, selfishly, personally, I love him as a pro wrestling commentator the most. He just brings that incredible, like, understanding of drama that just so enhances, you know, the type of, like, art that professional wrestling is. So, you know, well, you know, I truly do believe that someday he'll call professional wrestling again. I mean, I just feel like he's too good at it to not. I guess the better question is, do you see him working with the WWE again in the future?
My guess would be no. I think that this is probably it for him with WWE. Like, we know that, you know, in the past, you know, there had been, you know, issues for sure. And this one, I mean, it was described to me as amicable. I just don't know if he's, I mean, it's going to be up to him. I would think that if he had a desire to come back, that WWE would welcome him back. But I don't know if that would be necessarily in the cards. You have to imagine that if that presented itself, we would be back to a schedule where it would require travel that this current version did not. I mean, he was calling the shows from home. So to me, it was, you know, probably several factors that went into his decision to want to alleviate some of, you know, his obligations that he was required to do. You never shut the door, I guess, completely on anything. I guess it would be surprising if he's goes back to WWE, but people change their, you know, everyone's lives change. You could see a scenario where maybe that door is reopened down the road.
Yeah, when it comes to, like, you know, so much of, I think, anything to do with Mauro, you know, I think anybody who's a fan of his, anybody who's a friend of his, I think just always wants to make sure that he himself is okay. And, you know, in this case, like, his, you know, making sure that he's doing the right thing for himself and his family. So I personally, and I'm sure all his fans, wish him all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people know his history. He's been very forthcoming with it. And I think that's first and foremost, everyone hoping that everything is fine in that regard. Brock Lesnar. This was reported by Mike Johnson earlier today that he is a free agent. This was noted that his page had been taken down off of a WWE shop. And in additional reporting from Dave Meltzer, he noted that his latest contract ended after WrestleMania, when he did the match with Drew McIntyre, and that his merchandise deal has ended, and thus his WWE shop profile has been taken down. It's become a big story because it's Brock Lesnar. It just sounds from, like, the reporting that this is something that, you know, there is there's no deal, but at the same time, it sounds a lot like what's going on with the UFC and Conor McGregor, where the UFC is in this current situation where if they're going to use Conor McGregor, they want to be able to maximize that value. And if you can't get a live gate, do they really need Conor McGregor to fight at the moment when they're guaranteed a certain amount every month from ESPN Plus? And for WWE, they probably want to use Brock Lesnar when they can have regular live crowds. I mean, he does not come cheap. So why commit a huge dollar figure now when you're doing these types of shows? And when you look at like if you were looking at Brock Lesnar, and this has been a guy that throughout his career, his timing has been impeccable when it comes to his contracts being due and maximizing his bargaining position. I would say in this current climate, your options are, if you want to float that idea of the UFC, I mean, here's a guy that's 43 now. I think that UFC, I think it's the same deal as Conor McGregor. I don't think they would be necessarily be jumping at spending a huge amount of money to get Brock Lesnar to fight right now. AEW, I think that it's a fun idea to entertain, the idea of Lesnar ever going somewhere, but I just think financially what that would take would be much more detrimental to AEW than valuable. And ultimately, I just see this as probably two sides that are just realizing that now the timing is not right. And providing Lesnar wants to continue, I think ultimately a deal will be reached when WWE has the need for him. What do you think?
No, I agree with a lot of those points. You know, I think, I mean, the contract not being renewed right now is simply probably a matter of, you know, really just gaming, I think, each other. There's certainly not the leverage point that Lesnar had the last time he was doing all this with the UFC. I mean, he himself has said that his days of competing are over. So whether or not he would even be able to entertain the idea of like using UFC as a bargaining chip, seriously, I'm not really sure. But
if it was normal circumstances and UFC were running normal cards, I think there'd be interest to get Brock for one fight. I do not think it would be a good idea for Brock. It's for what he would be paid. He'd be thrown against an elite level heavyweight. And yeah, by the time he would be able to fight, he would be at least, I mean, he just turned 43. It's just, to me, that door has shut. It's not to say that there would not be a UFC or even a Bellator that would break the bank to try and bring him in. I just don't look at it as, it would be a very short-term decision that I don't think would be. Brock's been very smart with how he's handled his career, and that to me would, there was a time that was an option, but we're talking 4 years since his last fight.
The idea of him going to, you know, a place like AEW, if AEW even would entertain the idea of spending that amount of money on any single entity, I really do wonder what its audience would find, like how they would react to it. Because I would say like Brock Lesnar for a majority of his run recently has been looked at more so as a negative, and you know almost like this kind of toxic entity who's really like just, you know, held like a title situation up you know, for ransom almost, you know, just with how much he's getting paid and putting the belt to justify him. Putting the belt on him to justify the contract. It just seems like, I would say, a bit of an unhealthy situation, and I do wonder if the audience would even really appreciate it, because I certainly think like AEW right now has really built itself up on like making its name off of a lot of unknowns and not really disrupting its, I guess, I don't know, pay structure and star structure that badly, unless it was for somebody who seemed like a team player, like a Chris Jericho. Brock Lesnar certainly does not seem like a team player. So I don't think he would be a good fit.
I think there's a lot of cool stuff you could do for the right price with Brock, especially representing like the outsider coming to AEW, that I think they'd be very smart with how they use him. I just can't imagine Brock making that move unless it was just an unbelievable figure. Like, I think if it was equal, even if AEW matched what a WWE offer would entail, you would have to go that much higher to convince him to take and I think WWE would just increase his bidding with WWE. I think that AEW is not going to get into that kind of a bidding war, because I think for all the fantasy ideas and matches you could come up with, I just don't know if you could necessarily turn that high of a contract into a profitable one that you could generate like the amount of revenue off pay-per-view that.
Not without TV.
I just think it would really, it's just, it would be a very, you know, it would be a great coup for AEW to say, hey, we got Brock Lesnar. I just think that financially it would do much more damage in the long run, and I just don't see it as a realistic possibility at this stage of where AEW is. Years from now, they may be in a position where they could get into that kind of a bidding war, but that would not be where I would be putting my resources in a Brock Lesnar. So it's a big story today because it's Brock Lesnar, but ultimately it would be stunning to me if we're talking about Brock going anywhere. If he's going anywhere, to me it would be, hey, I've made my money. Do I need to continue? That would be the decision as opposed to going elsewhere.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some other news items that are happening. Wai, you know what I was thinking the other night when we did the Summer Struggle, and it was the end of the King of Pro Wrestling Fatal 4-Way?
More tournaments.
What's New Japan going to do without a tournament? Well, thankfully, they've answered that question. We are going to get the tournament of all tournaments for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag titles. The titles that have been vacated by Roppongi 3K. It's going to be decided over 4 nights, beginning later this week on September 5th and taking place over the New Japan Road Tour. We're going to get a round-robin tournament involving El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. That's the first team. Ryusuke Taguchi and Master Wato. Hiromu Takahashi and Bushi, and the sleeper tandem of Taiji Ishimori and Gedo. And the finals will take place at Korakuen Hall on September the 11th, and we will get new junior heavyweight tag team champions. My only question is, do we start our G1 coverage early to incorporate our analysis of this tournament?
Should we get Chris Angler to make a pool for us?
The ever so hard to select picks in the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Title Tournament. Yeah. This is a tournament that exists.
I mean, I can't honestly get too mad at them. Again, like New Japan right now, in my opinion, I think they're kind of hurting because they have a depleted roster. Half their guys are overseas. I wouldn't say half, I guess, but a good chunk of their stars are overseas and can't get over here. So you're having to be creative, trying to fill all these Korakuen Hall, smaller shows with something. And they just so happen to have an injury to one of the junior heavyweight tag team champions, and you can build a tournament around it. It's just something, honestly, to fill these small shows.
They're also going to be doing a never open weight 6-man tag title tournament on the last night with
a match.
Not a match. Yeah, sorry, not a tournament. Just a 6-man tag title match with our new champions of Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi taking on Kazuchika Okada, Sho, and who's the third
Toriano?
one? Toriano is the third one, yes. So that will be our 6-man tag title tournament. And this is our final tour before the G1. So, I mean, if these announcements are going to come, it's going to be somewhere during this tour, I guess. This is like the latest I think we've gone where there's still all these questions about G1 3 weeks away.
Maybe they're hoping for the best, as far as like some of their overseas talent goes, and maybe waiting to see what the last minute changes are when it comes to borders and things like that. I'm really not sure, but I mean, it seems like New Japan has a lot of shows booked and not necessarily a lot of main events that they could justify, for all of these shows. If you have a New Japan World subscription, I guess you're really going to get your money's worth if you really want to see a lot of these matches, but I can't really say I'm that interested.
We also had MLW. They're officially planning their return for October to hold television tapings at an undisclosed location in New York. And those new episodes are going to start airing in November on the Fubo Sports Network, which is a streaming platform they've signed a deal with. Saturday nights on beIN Sports, and they've also got the deal with DAZN. Court Bauer told SI.com they've hired a COVID compliance officer, Mike Kittless, and they're going to be the way they're going to be conducting testing is testing members before they even get on the airplane, once they land, and then again during the tapings, and then having other COVID-19 procedures in place for the tapings, and also maybe changing the name from Fusion to Underground, which is the name of their old series from the first iteration of MLW. They've announced talent for the tapings with Jacob Fatu, Tom Lawler, Alex Hammerstone, Myron Reed, Selena De La Renta, Richard Holiday, Calvin Tankman, and Brian Pillman Jr., who's, I guess, the interesting name that was under and still is under contract with MLW, but had been vocal about wanting out, but is being advertised for this taping.
Interesting, yeah. And interesting that they would go back to the underground name, or possibly go back to the underground name at this
That's
time.
right. Yeah. That's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's, I mean, they're saying it that people like the MLW underground name more than Fusion. I don't know how much of a groundswell there would be behind the name of the show, but I guess they're toying with that idea. Maybe they feel underground is in. Who wants to be above board these days? Who wants to be at sea level? They want to be underneath and safe, away from people.
Yeah.
Okay. Game Changer, they've announced the rescheduled dates for the Collective, and they're going to happen October 9th, 10th, and 11th with 4 shows per day. Some of the highlights on the Friday will be AIW. For the Culture is going to be the midnight show on Friday. On Saturday, October 10th, they've got Effie's Big Gay Brunch. Glory Pro will have a show. Saturday night is Joey Janela's Spring Break. And then Freelance will do a show at midnight. And then Sunday, Black Label Pro at noon, Shimmer at 4, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport at 8, and then Paradigm Pro Wrestling at 11:30 Sunday night. So 12 shows in 3 days. They're going to be streaming on Fight TV, and they're going to be holding the shows at the Marion County Fairgrounds in Indianapolis, Indiana, with COVID-19 guidelines. There will be reduced capacity, and they are allowing a window for those who had bought tickets for the Tampa shows to convert their tickets, or you can either get a refund or convert your tickets to credits for future GCW shows. Obviously, the big shows are going to be, I would say, Spring Break and Bloodsport. This is also going to fall...
And for the culture, I think.
And for the culture, yes. I would say even more of a larger show, just given everything this year. I think that's a very important show that's happening. This will be a weekend that we're right in the midst of G1, but it will be interesting to see how much engagement there is for all of these shows grouped together, which is there's going to be a lot of focus on.
God, I was just getting so excited until you reminded me that this was in the middle of the G1.
Yep, there's shows on the Saturday and Sunday as well. At least, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of wrestling.
It is, but you know what? I'll definitely still make an effort to check out the 3 shows that we mentioned. I mean, I was really looking forward to those 3 in particular, more so than pretty much anything for WrestleMania weekend this year. It's not going to be the same watching it on what is it, Fight TV or wherever they're going to host it.
Yeah, Fight.
But nonetheless, I feel like there will be shows that will be talked about.
Yeah, and I would think that they offer some kind of a pass to get just access to the whole show, much like they do with StarCast. I think that would be a really smart idea on Fight TV's behalf.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so that's coming up in October, and today on Ariel Helwani's show, I guess Daniel Cormier is the co-host, but I mean, if there was any doubt, he pretty much eliminated it, stating he's retiring, he's planning to withdraw from the USADA testing pool, and has just indicated, like, this is it. You got to know when your time is up. And I thought it was like a very reasoned point of view that Daniel Cormier had. He had said that he only wants to fight for championships. There's no way he sees himself getting a title fight again, which, I mean, Daniel, this is the UFC. It's not the most preposterous idea that he could get a title fight, but he seems that he is not even entertaining that, and said that he still believes he could beat Stipe Miocic, but every day that's getting less and less of a possibility. He's getting older, and cited even the age difference when he fought John Jones, that he's fighting all of these younger guys and he's just getting older, and you need to know when it's time to call it a career. And that's what he's doing. A guy that, I mean, it's a remarkable career that he had for someone that had no stand-up training until the age of 30 when he had his first fight. That's pretty remarkable when what this guy did in his 30s when he came into this sport with, I mean, granted, a very high level, but a wrestling background and not a striking one.
Completely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, every professional sports competitor eventually has to have this conversation, and it feels like Cormier has kind of been delaying it for a bit now. But, you honestly never say never. Like, unless your body physically tells you you can't do it. And I mean, Cormier still seems like he can compete at a very high level. So if the UFC comes calling, hey, special attraction, we need somebody for this championship fight. Can you see that happening?
With Cormier, no, I don't see that happening. It would not shock me at all that he would be offered something, but I think officially once he's out of the testing pool, I think mentally he's done, and I think once he's closed the door, it's shut. Daniel Cormier is one that I think we will not see this guy fight again. He made a ton of money during these last number of years that I think he knows that he's going out on not the most ideal note, losing this last fight to Miocic, but one that I think he realizes that it's not going to be a better outcome the next time around either for the level of fights he would be wanting. And I think this is it for him. He's got a lot of options, I'm sure, on the table for himself. And I think he's ready to move on to the next stage of his life. I mean, he said in this, like, he is not sad about this decision. He seems to, that fight was only a couple of weeks ago, but he seems to have reached that conclusion pretty definitively.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I wish him a successful transition.
And just last two quick notes here. SmackDown did 2,144,000 viewers, slightly below last week's number, but still their second highest since June. They were number one for the night in 18 to 49s, 18 to 34, and 25 to 54. So for the second consecutive week, topping 2 million viewers. So that is a positive for SmackDown. And I think SmackDown will continue that. I feel that the Roman Reigns comeback has definitely reinvigorated that show and the interest for it.
It's been a great way to capitalize on the buzz that they generated from the Thunderdome debut right into SummerSlam, and then doing something big right after the week right afterwards with a big Roman Reigns heel turn. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. They're on a good roll.
And NXT has added Bronson Reed and Timothy Thatcher to tomorrow night's episode, which will be headlined by the 60-minute Iron Man match for the vacant NXT title with a special Super Tuesday edition of NXT. So Tuesday night, you can watch 2 hours of NXT, 2 hours of Impact, probably minimum 90 minutes of AEW Dark, and throw on 2 hours of Dana White's Contender Series. Just another quiet Tuesday night.
Is that what you're going to be doing?
I'm not watching all of that. No, Tuesday nights, I usually have reserved for the Contender Series because I really enjoy that show every week. I have a great time watching it. But tomorrow night, I probably will be watching NXT.
Yeah, likewise, if not Wednesday.
Yes, and Braden and Davey will have it up next on the site, I believe around Wednesday afternoon. They will not have it up Tuesday night, but you can look forward to it on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night, Wai and I will have Rewinded Dynamite, which follows Tuesday night's release of Rewind Away, number 69, the Halloween Havoc 91 edition.
This show... I'm about like an hour and a half into it.
I'm so glad you started it.
It is from the get-go, it is the show that just keeps on giving. We start off with the Chamber of Horrors. And God, if you haven't seen this match, it is a marvel. The goal of the match is to put your opponent, first of all, it's like a Hell in a Cell that like 6 people are in. And among them are like, Mick Foley, Abdullah the Butcher, Sting, Scott Hall. And the goal of the match is to put your opponent into an electric chair that is wired to a voltage switch. So you're supposed to put your opponent in an electric chair inside this cage, strap them in, and then hit the switch. And of course, hilarity ensues. So that's just the start. The rest of this show looks incredible. So yeah, I can't wait to talk about it.
The whole star-studded lineup of WCW 1991 roster members, from Oz to Bill Kazmaier, the Creatures, the Z-Man.
Love the Creatures.
The Creatures.
And
all of that.
Don't forget the Ghouls.
The Ghouls. Yes,
the
that's
Ghouls.
right. Yes. Man, Van Hammer.
Yeah.
All of it. All of it coming at you Tuesday night, a deep dive into WCW 1991. What a show this is. Going head to head with Game 7 of the World Series.
Oh, really? In 91?
The Minnesota Twins versus the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, no wonder they were so big.
Yeah. So that's coming up Tuesday night for all members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. Thursday, the British Wrestling Experience will be featuring Martin Bushby and Benno, joined by Shane from the WrestleWipe.com site. They're going to be chatting about Rev Pro's latest show that they put up, Epic Encounters, and discussing the issues attached with that show. They will also be going through the return of NXT UK, many other topics.
Hey, we never got a chance to mention it last time just because, like, so much had happened since then. But, like, huge thank you to Jamesy for the time that he spent on the British Wrestling Experience. Just, you know, did we mention it, John?
I think we did, yes. I think we gave him a send-off, but why not? Let's mention it again. One.
Jamesy, hey, like, just thank you for everything you contributed to the British Wrestling Experience. But, you know, Benno and Martin have a lot in store for the show coming up as well, and I imagine they'll make some more announcements on this edition on Thursday.
Friday night, we're live 10:15 Eastern for patrons with Rewind to SmackDown that takes us into the weekend, which will include our all-out post show. Right after the pay-per-view Saturday night, Wai and I will be live for our double-double Ice Cap and Espresso patrons, running down that show. And then Sunday, WH Park is back for the long and winding Royal Road. It's getting longer, it's winding that much more, and this week he is picking up JP Houlihan from the side of the road, and they're going to travel to June of 1990 to chat about a very legendary match involving Jumbo Tsuruta and Mitsuharu Misawa, a real passing of the torch style match that they will discuss.
Awesome. There's your weekend set.
You're all set. Perfect. And of course, this month, it's the launch of all of our bonus content for Cafe members, including our coverage of the G1. We will have a show after every single edition of the G1 beginning September the 19th. So Cafe members will get plenty of extra shows. In addition to that, a bonus show every Tuesday, including 3 Rewind-aways this month, a review of Rocky 2, and one of our favorites, Ask Away, the mailbag show.
On the Rocky front, you know, just in case you guys wanted a sampling of what you might get next Tuesday, we're going to actually put up our Rocky Run 1 review on this very feed tomorrow night, absolutely for free, just to get you guys caught up. And perhaps if you're interested in joining us for the ride, now is really the perfect time. It's the first of the month. $6 a month gets you all of this.
All of that and our entire archive. So check that out. It is now officially the first of the month, so it's the best time to sign up and get the most bang for your buck on the Post Wrestling Cafe. So enough of us just patting ourselves on the back. Let us move on to Raw from Monday night in, as Tom Phillips called it, the vaunted WWE Thunderdome at the Amway Center.
Vaunted?
Vaunted, yes.
Huh. I don't know if I've ever described anything as vaunted.
Yes, it was one of those, like, the WWE, like, neuroses that everyone acquires watching this, that you just start to pay attention to see, oh, okay, is this the new terminology? I only heard it the once, so this may have been Tom Phillips editorializing. I'm not sure.
He loves to vaunt. Tom Phillips.
He's a vaunter. Randy Orton sauntered out, and Tom notes that Drew may be medically cleared for Clash of Champions. I guess right off the top, we should note that the one match that they had been advertising for tonight, Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins, they explained that Rey suffered an injury at Payback and was not medically cleared tonight. I was told it is a legitimate injury. I don't know what the extent of the injury is. They referred to it as a torn triceps tonight. Obviously, a full tear. That's significant. I would think that since there was no angle shot tonight, that they are hopeful it's not a significant injury and that it's only a minor one. But we'll look to get further indication. But that was the reason that they changed things around tonight, and Rey did not wrestle, and Dominik ended up taking on Seth Rollins instead.
You know, initially, I certainly thought it was just an angle because maybe, you know, they came to their senses and decided to delay, Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio for a later time. But this makes a lot of sense, too.
Randy's out, and he says that Drew disrespected him by offering him a rematch out of pity. He deserves the fractured jaw, and he's going to be drinking his meals through a straw. He's already entitled for another title match, but he's going to jump through the hoops that have been presented tonight. And those hoops are 3 singles matches with the winners meeting tonight in a 3-way match to determine the challenger at Clash of Champions. Those matches will be Keith Lee versus Dolph Ziggler, Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, and Dominik taking on Seth Rollins. And before Orton gets interrupted, Orton's been busy. Since the loss to Keith Lee, he was getting down with his Photoshop skills. And he posted a photo of all of his victims in hospital beds, including Shawn Michaels with an ice pack. The guy who seemed the most resilient to the punt kick. Nothing like a little Photoshop to really drive home a heel's dastardly ways.
You know, of all the heels that have ever used the Photoshop gag, I would say Randy Orton seems like one of the more unlikely candidates. Usually it's reserved for comedy. And Randy Orton's not a comedic heel whatsoever. So the big punchline of this promo being this Photoshop joke was definitely a bit, uncharacteristic. Did not seem scathing in the least. But I was glad to see that they used a photo of Ric Flair crying for his photo.
Of course.
Probably isn't hard to find.
Yeah, just Google image that one. It's okay. Keith Lee interrupts and does a long promo. Very slow. And then Dolph Ziggler runs in and attacks Keith.
You're not going to recap Keith Lee's promos?
Maybe.
His delivery is just so over the top comic book character like.
Randy Orton, you are very meticulous, cunning even. And I feel that I am limitless. You could say. We'd be here all night if I was recapping.
That's
these
pretty
promos,
good.
dude.
That's really not bad for a first attempt.
Oh.
I love it. I think it's unique. It's obviously, you could tell me this, John, probably very fun to impersonate.
Not if I can increase the speed. This is like a total 1.5 times the speed kind of promo.
It's kind of Bane-like, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. He is very comic book oriented. Like he is, like his comebacks are total Incredible Hulk.
By the way, the hula skirt last night was in reference to Brawly, a Dragon Ball Z character from Dragon Ball Z.
Did I not point that out?
Did you?
I thought I mentioned that. Thank you.
Yeah.
The promo ended with Ziggler dropping Keith Lee on his head with a DDT.
Yep.
And in we go. It's a Raw version of Dolph Ziggler, not Raw Underground version of Ziggler. So you just had a match. Phillips confirms no Rollins and Rey tonight with Dominik in his place. Ziggler just bumped around for Keith Lee. He took a big pounce. They went through a break. Famouser was kicked out of. Then Lee pressed him in the air, does kind of his little Tour of the Islands version, and then just roars and gets hit with the zigzag, comes back, hits Ziggler with the Spirit Bomb, which they're using as his big finish. They have not used the Big Bang Catastrophe on the main roster yet. And Keith Lee wins in 8 minutes and 54 seconds.
I like the match. I often maybe think I've developed an appreciation for a WWE style match. Just to have a guy like Keith Lee come out here and fight from underneath and sell, and seeing how good the heel can control the match. I kind of liked it, but at the same time, I'm fully ready to admit that it's absolutely the wrong type of match for a character like Keith Lee's. The man is a monster. He should be getting the Drew McIntyre or Braun Strowman type of push. I don't think he should be going 50-50 against Dolph here.
Yeah, I didn't think this was the most dynamic match. It was a win for Keith Lee, but tonight was really all about building off of last night, and I think it was kind of hit.
If the idea was to build off of last night, they should have probably made a bigger deal out of the win. In the first segment here, I understand, they completely ignored it, and I understand why they did, because it was Randy Orton almost no selling the effects of a big loss. Hey, I'm still in line for the title shot. I didn't lose last night, that type of thing. But in doing so, I think at the very least in your recaps, you had to make a big deal out of it, because you definitely, I would say, to me, they diminished the effect for the audience who didn't see that win. And even for the audience who did see the win, you're not reminded of it. They needed to start the show off Big upset last night. Keith Lee beat Randy Orton. I couldn't believe, like, everybody's going crazy.
It should have been like, this monster has come into Raw and he just scored the biggest win of his career. Like, play it like that. It's like, that's how it should have been treated. And by the end of tonight, it was like, okay, Orton had a blip in the road and lost a match that ultimately didn't have stakes attached to it, and he won the important one tonight.
Yeah.
Phillips brings up the injury to Rey, and then Sarah Schreiber interviews Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Jax says that, I told Shayna to just follow my lead, and we won. Shayna says, no, I told you to stay out of my way, and I used Sasha as my personal weapon and put Bayley to sleep. Jax says, yeah, after I threw them around for the whole match. So it's just the team, the partners that just are getting on each other's nerves. Asuka walks in. She wants to know her next challenger. Baszler and Jax are offended because this is her interview time. And Baszler gets shoved away as Asuka gets into Nia's face. And then Baszler returns. So that would set up our promo segment for later.
I loved the finish so much last night. I really still can't get over it. I really wish at least they showed like a still shot of Shayna just putting those two into that submission. I think it would have really just, again, cemented what a great moment that was. I hate these two trash talking. I think it's so bad. I think they have such bad chemistry. The lines are bad. I really don't feel hatred at all between them. It feels so playful. It really does feel more like, you know, like flirting instead of like a heated rivalry. And it's cliched. I think it kind of sucks.
And I guess like no doubt here that Banks and Bayley are probably just going to be on SmackDown.
Yeah, they don't have the belts.
Was Sasha was on SmackDown, right? Before all of this?
They're both on SmackDown.
I know Bayley was. I, for the life of me, cannot remember.
Sasha as well.
Sasha's been on both shows for so long now, like almost the entire pandemic. Adam Pearce is with security, and he says how Retribution ruined the main event of Raw last week. It's not going to happen tonight. Not exactly the vote of confidence here for security, as he threatened to hire better security if they fail tonight.
We've seen Adam Pearce's role, like, you know, grow pretty big over the past couple weeks, and I will say he definitely like gets angry and yells at people pretty well. He yells at ambulance as well. Yells at security guards well.
I do have like the indication that Retribution sounds like it's going to be a Raw storyline.
Oh, okay.
So that seems to be where they are going to continue with this. Like,
why? Like, they're what? They're just they only want to work Mondays?
I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a pandemic.
Hacking into those light boxes.
Well, you have to say that now with Roman back, does this storyline really fit on SmackDown?
I guess not. You're going to have to change their motivations, though. Hey, like, we're suddenly just going to take over one show instead of both?
Maybe there's a certain official that's secretly letting them in every week.
Who's that?
This maniac who's screaming at security.
Whoa.
Are you
kidding me?
Scrap Iron could be perhaps behind the scenes pulling some strings here.
Interesting. Okay. No, I don't think so.
Adam Pearce definitely has a more prominent role. And, I mean, he's got a name, which is more than most of the referees.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Charlie welcomes Asuka for the interview, and she lists off the different women in the division and just laughs. Asuka says she's ready for anything. And Mickie James comes out on her birthday and confronts Asuka and she says, I recognize greatness. Asuka is one of the greatest women's champions of all time, but I'm telling you to your face, I'm coming for your title. She's seeking revenge from a takeover in Toronto.
I forgot that. You're right.
Yeah, wow. We went to that one. Natalya and Lana come out. They say that Mickie isn't going to jump the line. She's had 6 chances. Has she had 6 chances at this title?
I don't know.
Lana says that Mickie is stuck in the past. Age doesn't matter because J-Lo is 50 and fabulous, but Mickie hasn't evolved. And she's wearing her same ring gear since 1998. And Lana is a fashion influencer, and Mickie will have to go through her to get to Natalya. Asuka just says, I'm ready for all three of you. So just pick someone. And they all fought.
You immediately get the indication that this is going to be a much smaller scale feud for Asuka. And I think the reason for that is because they've done a terrible job of getting Natalya and Mickie ready for this spot. I mean, the two of them have had like 2 matches properly. And one of them had Seth Rollins and Samoa Joe talking all over it. So they're seemingly appearing into this title picture from out of nowhere. But at the same time, it's like, I am happy to see fresh faces in the division. We're, the promise of like either a Natalya Asuka match or an Asuka Mickie match should be good.
They promoted a Connor's Cure for Pediatric Awareness Month in September. Then the Viking Raiders and Cedric Alexander were smashing their forearms together when Demi Burnett wished them luck tonight and was impressed how Cedric Alexander turned down the offer from the Hurt Business. Then she kissed Ivar on the cheek, and there lurking in the background was Angel Garza with a rose.
Yeah, so...
Very busy night for Demi Burnett.
It's weird, because, Demi, I guess, likes Ivar, and you had Angel, creepily stalking her from a distance. But then she walks out with Angel?
Yeah, it seemed that Garza was... I don't know. I don't know what he was doing here.
Did we miss something off camera?
If I was Ivar, it'd be like, okay, Demi, the fuck? What's going on here? I watch Raw.
Yeah.
You're with this guy. You're hitting on me. What's going on here? You have to make a decision. It's Ivar or Garza. And that doesn't really seem to be... It's almost like she's just in these parallel storylines.
I mean, I'm sure they'll interact at some point.
Lana and Mickie James... We had Asuka on commentary where her microphone was dead, but then eventually turned on.
Retribution.
They traded slaps. The Mick DT is blocked when Lana runs to the rope, and then Lana kicks her, and Mickie responds with the Mick kick, wins in 240, and they were really pushing Asuka versus Mickie as Natalya was all distressed, reacting to this loss.
It's been a while since we've seen Lana wrestle. I think she does pretty decently in multi-man matches. In a single setting, not as much, but it was such a short match, really just there to make Mickie look a bit stronger. So I guess that was fine.
Randy Orton comes out of Aleister Black's room as Charlie is out there reporting, and we are left to wonder what that conversation was like. Me especially. Schreiber is with the IIconics, and we learn that tonight, the IIconics will take on Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan. The winners will get a tag title shot. The losers must disband.
This came up out of nowhere.
So it came out of nowhere. I did ask about this and did not really get an answer as to what the story is behind. But obviously there's a story here because this came out of nowhere, and we'll get to it, but they're breaking up the IIconics, and the way, we'll get to it later. It did seem like at least some kind of, they had Billie Kay, not just lose, but then get knocked out with a head kick. So I don't know what the story is, what's going on with these two, but this, completely out of left field tonight.
From the moment they announced the stipulation, I mean, I think if any seasoned viewer would automatically understand that, okay, they're probably not going to break up the Riot Squad. They just spent forever to put them back together. And then they had the IIconics here even talk about growing up together, or at least knowing each other since they were really young, showing photos of them together. And you can immediately even just see on their faces that this is it. This was their last show together as a team. This was a goodbye speech, and it was really sad. Yeah,
they showed photos of them. They've been friends since high school. And the way they played it up in commentary, it was not just that they would have to break up as a team, but not have any contact with one another after tonight. They can no longer be friends if they lose this match.
Oh, they agreed to this. For what game?
They're no, we're okay. We can skip the tag title shot this pay-per-view cycle. We'll be needed down the road. You're going to need heels. And they called the Riot Squad snot-nosed hooligans who are destined to self-destruct. Evidently not. Orton is awaiting Kevin Owens in the ring, and Kevin Owens walks down, and out comes Aleister Black, who I've got to say, he's got a pretty badass look now, where he's got like the Terry Funk, eye is all bandaged up, and he's also got like Shayna Baszler's mascara to cover his eye all black, and just took out Owens, hit the black mass, and then the ultimate the ultimate safety protocol exhibited by referee Derek Moore. Okay. Kevin Owens has been kicked in the head. He's barely conscious, rolled into the ring, and Derek Moore. Are you okay, Kevin? Owens is on a plane to Montreal in his head right now. That is the elevation level his body was at as he stumbles in this ring. And Owens is pleading, I can start. He goes, ring the bell. And Derek Moore, okay, I've got to do it. And he rings the bell. If I ever find myself in a match, this is the last referee on earth I want, where the fighter's safety is paramount. Not to this guy. 16 seconds, RKO, secondary concussion here by Kevin Owens on Impact, and Orton wins in seconds.
I mean, technically, this is for a title qualifier, so I think it would be playoff rules.
Dude, this was no rules. This was no holds barred. Okay, I've got to do it. He said to continue. This is the referee Anthony Smith and every UFC fighter wants. Just let us fight to the death. Don't end my fight as long as I'm breathing. So Orton advances with the least amount of work.
And we continue the Owens-Black feud.
Yes. Charlie is with the entire Mysterios, including Aaliyah.
All grown up, taller than Dad now, even.
She is, getting... Everyone's going to be towering over Rey in no time. Rey's right arm is wrapped up. He notes the pain that Seth has put his family through, and he would have loved to have beaten Seth tonight to earn a title shot, but his loss is his son's gain. Injuries happen, and Dominik is the one person he'd want to take his place. Dominik says, I know I'm the underdog, but after winning last night, my confidence is on another level, and I've got a 619 with the Monday Night Messiah's name written on it. This guy is becoming like a real talent.
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, I think he plays Rey Mysterio's son, I mean, obviously really well, but even like his promo is not the loudest. It's not pro wrestler like. He just feels like he's like a dude's son. But Rey, I think, delivers that like very passion really good. But Dominik, for his role, I think he's absolutely perfect.
Do you get any sense that, we talked about it a lot last week, like long term, where's the best place for Dominik to develop? But do you feel that WWE is going to acknowledge like this guy has done very well and they're not going to be in any rush to place him elsewhere, that he might be permanent fixture of this Raw roster or SmackDown for that matter?
I mean, I really have to feel like they would be smart enough to understand that that would be to his detriment. I would hope Rey Mysterio would see that as well. Because, he works really well for this current storyline. But once Rey Mysterio is out of the picture, he's just going to be like, another skinny high flyer that I assure you will be completely lost on that card. So I think he needs to, after the storyline is done, he's made his name, take the time off, maybe build a bit of muscle and work on that promo, and then come back in a couple of years, for a real run.
They ran a SmackDown promo. The show's really just built around Roman Reigns appearing as the new champion. MVP and Shelton are in the ring for the VIP lounge. MVP made a bunch of Thunderdome movie references before bringing out Bobby Lashley. He said there's 3 definites in life: death, taxes, and Bobby Lashley. And Lashley takes the microphone, and he said that he did everything he said he would to Apollo Crews, including putting him into the Hurt Lock.
Far better name than the full Lashley.
Yes, I would agree. The full Lashley was going to be really tough to just...
We'll see.
It's a weird name.
Did they call it in the match today?
I didn't hear it tonight. No.
I didn't hear it tonight too. So I mean, we don't know yet if this.
He also did he even apply it though?
No,
tonight?
I don't think so. Not that I recall. So I don't exactly know if like this is just Bobby Lashley trying to like fit that in here, or if they've actually changed the name of the full Lashley. I'm really hoping it's the former.
Yeah, much better name. He said Cruz tried to get a little bit of payback during Payback, and he just stares into the camera, and he basically is promising, Apollo, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. But tonight, Shelton gets his chance because he's taking on Cruz in the Raw Underground. And as well, he's got double duty. He's going to have to do a 6-man tag on top of that. Alexander comes out, the Hurt Business approach him on the aisle, and Alexander has not changed his mind about joining them. And then the Viking Raiders appear from behind. Everyone brawls on the floor, and that takes us into the 6-man.
Yeah.
Lashley, MVP, and Shelton against Alexander and the Viking Raiders. They beat down on Alexander forever. He's just getting dominated. MVP with a running boot in the corner. Benjamin and Lashley pull the Viking Raiders off the apron so Alexander can't tag out. MVP goes for a splash in the corner, misses, and Alexander rolls up MVP, grabbing the tights, and pins MVP in 620, and MVP comes up smiling because of the idea that slowly he's corrupting Cedric Alexander's sensibilities, and he cheated to beat him.
Oh, okay. So this is like a, dark side of the force type of thing?
Yes, he's corrupting Cedric.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Cedi is making the small adjustments.
Okay.
Then we saw Titus O'Neil warming up for Raw Underground, and the Hurt Business attacked Cedric Alexander backstage. That was quick that they found this guy. And then Cruz and Ricochet chased them off to help up Alexander. The IIconics versus Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan. They went 3.5 minutes. This was our farewell to the IIconics. Riott was driven into Kay's knee by Peyton Royce, and we had Royce working over Riott until Morgan got the hot tag, until she was thrown down by her hair. The IIconics take over. Morgan hits an enziguri, tags in Ruby, and Morgan takes out Royce, and Riott and Kay trade covers back and forth. And just like that, Riott stacks her and pins her. It was kind of just like the fish out of water spot, like a slower version, and then just on one of the rotations caught her. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, all of this, obviously felt incredibly rushed. I mean, to tell a breakup story of, I would say, one of your few, if not like the most kind of legitimate tag team in the entire company right now, that definitely could have been a larger story. So I definitely await to see perhaps what the reason was that they decided to rush this.
Yeah, obviously there was a story and they felt the need that they had to do this right away. So I'm sure that will be known. The IIconics have a big tantrum and they note over a decade of friendship is gone.
Yeah, we didn't even get a final "You Gotta Be Joking Me" from Billy Kay.
Nothing.
So maybe they'll do that on .com.
Shane McMahon tees up Raw Underground. Big Jordan just nods, lets him in. Rollins brings out Murphy ahead of the Dominik match, and he just beats down Murphy verbally. He told him not to make any mistakes. You kicked me in the head. Now get the hell out of my ring. You can decide what side of history you want to be on. And before he leaves, he just slaps Murphy in the back of the head. So yet another relationship crumbling.
This felt like a mini write-off for Buddy Murphy, until I guess he shows up inevitably again with some sort of, I don't know, change. Who knows?
Over 3 months of friendship is gone.
Yeah. But, I mean, I almost felt like Rollins was building sympathy here for Murphy, really bullying him, slapping him in the back of the head. He just, walked away to the back, I think, like such a sad puppy dog. I was starting to feel bad for him. But then out comes Dominik, just, clotheslining this poor bullied man in the back of the head. Now I really feel bad for him.
Yeah, he really has nobody left.
Yes.
He used to be named.
Yeah.
Dominik takes him out. Rollins smiles at this. It's just like, poor Murphy. So the match begins, and Dominik just storms the ring. He hits a springboard arm drag, and he's setting him up for the 619. Rollins ducks and yanks him to the floor, so they fight around the desk. Rollins is in control, grounds him with a body scissors, and then Dominik counters a buckle bomb by sending him into the corner with a Rana. There's a tornado DDT. Rollins, there's a standing moonsault by Dominik. Rollins kicks out, then a high cross to the floor. They show the Mysterios watching backstage, and then he sets up, hits the 619, but the frog splash misses, allowing Rollins to hit the stomp and pin Dominik in 10 minutes, 4 seconds. And then a second stomp for good measure, as the family is horrified, and poor Angie was just beside herself watching her son stomp twice.
Oh, man. Felt bad.
Might have broken his jaw.
Anytime they cut to the parent, I mean, that gets me every time. Another good match. You know, Seth Rollins is amazing. Dominik really couldn't have picked a better person to have his debut matches with. But, however, like, this is a feud that's really taken Seth's character to another level. So I think it's been mutually beneficial.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what is next? I guess there's some questions surrounding Rey, but regardless, like, has this Mysterio storyline kind of reached its conclusion? Can you squeeze out one more big match? And if not, where is Seth going? I mean, you kind of had this hint of this Murphy dissension. It's kind of an interesting question of what is next.
Yeah, I mean, they still, of course, have they could do another Rey versus Seth match coming out of this, but how long is Rey going to be out? I took this to almost look like Dominik might be away for a bit.
I mean, it was only 2 pieces of contact to the head, not 3. I mean, it's...
But he's an average person.
He's an average person. Okay. Yeah. We go to the Raw Underground, and there is Titus just murdering
They
guys.
should have, like, his mom, ground him. Like, Angie
ground Dominik?
Yeah.
It looked like Seth grounded him.
Yes. But I mean, like, they should have Angie send Dominik, lock him in his room.
We go to the Raw Underground, and Titus just destroys this poor guy. I mean, he choke slams him and just starts ramming his head into the mat, which is one way to end a fight. Then the next guy goes for a single leg and gets thrown and mounted. And, dude, fucking Titus O'Neil channels Mark Coleman here and starts headbutting him for the finish.
I would say, like, you know, if we've seen on Raw Underground several, you know, people with, like, MMA influence, I would say Titus O'Neil reminded us more of, like, UFC 1. And by that, I mean, like, guys that are just honestly off the street without really any sort of legitimate martial arts background whatsoever. His fighting, to me, was a lot less convincing than many of the others.
I did like kind of the thought process of this whole segment, though, because after he murdered these 2 guys, it's Riddick Moss who challenges Titus. And here they have a competitive fight. Moss gets some takedowns. The new thing is just the guys get thrown off the canvas to the floor. And I thought they really overdid this on the Underground tonight. Moss is driven into the wall with all the stuff hanging. And then they get back into the canvas area. And Moss kicks him low and drills him with a right hook, and Titus is knocked out. So what I would say here is the positive is that if we had done Riddick Moss versus Titus O'Neil cold, it's nothing. So they had Titus kill these guys so that when Riddick Moss knocked him out, he had accomplished something by beating this guy who had just looked like a killer against these 2. And some of these segments get pretty ridiculous with the offense. I could have done without the low blow. But I get the sense that these Raw Underground segments are supposed to have some, like, camp violence attached to them for shock value. But there's a purpose to it, and they wanted to make Riddick Moss's win seem impressive over someone rather than just doing it cold where Titus is not going to mean a whole lot. They built him up for 60 seconds first.
Yeah, I like the swerve here. You think they're setting Titus up, but really they're feeding him to Riddick Moss. So we'll see where they go with it. I mean, I'm yet to be convinced that any of these people that they're actually pushing on Raw Underground are going to make any sort of successful transition to, like, a main roster scene. You know, we had Dolph Ziggler, I suppose, somehow earn himself a near title opportunity for, I can't tell you any other reason, but maybe some semi-success on Raw Underground. So maybe Riddick Moss is up next.
The Street Profits are in the back. We get Coach Dawkins' scouting report, which was kind of grammatically incorrect.
Why?
Dawkins, it said Coach Dawkins' scouting report without the possessive.
Oh, so it was missing the apostrophe?
Yes.
Okay. Typo.
Andrade, he's always looking mad, even though he's tranquilo. Garza, I don't care. Okay, they made fun of the poison. That was the funniest part. They literally laughed this off.
They made fun of Angel for wearing a tracksuit that looks cheap. They made fun of Zelina for being too short to get on rides at amusement parks. It was really corny, you know? A lot of their shit has been just so corny. But they have a lot of personality, high energy, like maybe children really like them.
Moving on. It doesn't get much better here, though. Akira Tozawa drives into the arena. This was earlier today. And he gets stopped and is not being checked with a temperature or a questionnaire, nothing. He just drives right in, lowers his window, and even the ninjas, no masks here for Tozawa. And his name is not on the list. And he gets out, grabs the clipboard, and it's an empty list. So he did not make the list. And then Tozawa realizes that this official is a referee with his referee shirt hidden as R-Truth sneaks up from behind, wins the 24/7 title for the 39th time, and then Akira Tozawa gets back into the car and chases Truth. They lose a ninja on the way, but take the referee to go hunt down R-Truth to get the title back, and I guess is still driving in the concourse area. I don't know where he is in this car.
I like when he tried to get back into the van, he realized he locked himself out and had to reach through the window to open the lock to let himself in.
God bless power locks. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the point of all this is other than to, I don't know, get one of these on every show. They're just running in circles. They're not amusing at all. But, hey, I'm happy for Akira Tozawa not having to give his body.
They should adopt one thing and make these 2-count matches.
Okay. Why?
Just to do something. I don't know.
Would that make it better?
No, probably not. I take that back. The Street Profits took on Andrade and Garza in a tornado match for the Raw tag titles. Demi Burnett's ringside. Vega is ringside, but Demi Burnett gets a nice cushioned seat, and Vega had to stand.
I guess one is actively managing, probably going to get involved in the match, and the other was just there to watch.
If you were managing me,
yeah,
I'd want you comfortable. I'd want you with a desk, maybe taking some notes.
Maybe a laptop.
Perhaps, yeah, like an earpiece. Whatever it takes. I would want you from a certain vantage point to make sure you have an unobstructed view.
Well, we know
maybe standing you can be more mobile, so maybe that does help.
When we say managing, I think you and I know what that really means.
Ford is sent into the post, just to remind us how delicate the shoulders are. I don't know what this was, but I found it hilarious because Ford sells the post shot, and as he's about to fall to the floor off the edge, he reaches like
the cup?
Sylvester Stallone in Cliffhanger for the red cup, and he can't get it, and he just falls. He plummets to the floor without the red cup that would have saved him. That was just the highlight of this. They work on the arm of Angelo Dawkins for about an hour. Then he fights back, does his usual comeback. He's caught in the Tree of Woe. Montez Ford, leaped out of God knows what and just cleared the ring to make the save. It was the most physically impressive thing. He hits a running blockbuster onto Andrade, shakes the ropes so hard that the power starts to go out, and retribution starts to appear. Angel Garza takes Demi and runs away, abandoning Andrade. As Retribution storms the ring, they attack everyone, including Vega and Andrade, before running away. We don't get any finish to this tornado match, and Retribution has made their mark.
I was really thankful for the attack. I'm so sick of this fucking feud and couldn't give a shit who would have won this match. So thank you, Retribution.
Next was Adam Pearce, who was screaming at security, telling them to get to their post. Get to their post.
Yep.
From there, Shane is with the IIconics, who have made their way to Raw Underground, and they look really excited to be here.
Well, I mean, they were sad. You know, they were told that the friendship that they built up, the act. I mean, they're going to have to change all their ring gear, you know, all their double team moves.
Shane then introduces our match, Avery Taylor versus the returning Jessamyn Duke.
Yes.
So, ask and we shall receive. Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir back here tonight. Duke just attacks her with kick after kick and then finishes her with ground and pound and then won't stop as she shoves Avery Taylor to the floor. Then another woman gets involved and is confronted by Marina Shafir, who, in her bucket hat and long skirt, nails this girl in the body, violently hip tosses her, and submits her.
I thought Marina looked like a beast, even in that bucket hat.
She looked like Raiden.
A little.
A little bit?
Sure. Yeah, maybe.
It's the hat.
I don't think Raiden wears a bucket hat. But...
Well, this is like a subdued Raiden without the electricity.
Okay.
Then Peyton Royce throws Billie Kay in with the Sharks, and Billie Kay is petrified and gets head kicked by Duke. Peyton looks frightened as Duke beats Kay, and Shane just throws it while Billy's unconscious, and Peyton is looking scared to death. And I don't know what this was, but this was maybe the end of Billie Kay for now. I don't know.
Not really sure either. I mean, you know, this almost seemed like it was Peyton Royce turning on Billie Kay by shoving her into the ring like that. But it was played so much more comedically that it almost felt like an oopsie, you know, type of thing. Who knows what the real reason is why they might be breaking the team up? Is this going to lead to Billie Kay taking time off even? We have no idea. But they needed somebody to fulfill it. And I thought as a way of continuing to introduce Shafir and Duke into like the WWE realm, allowing them to work this style in the underground, presenting them as two like very legit killers is really good for them.
Yep. I mean, this is kind of the best place for them to kind of just, you know, accentuate their strengths. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it'll just be kind of interesting what the deal is with the IIconics after this. Charlie is with Cruz, Ricochet, and Alexander. She recaps all of their failures of late, and Cruz says that the old Apollo would have just been happy to have been U.S. champion. I was waiting for the follow-up. You know, Ricochet, last year at SummerSlam, you lost the U.S. title, and that was exactly your attitude.
Ricochet just like happened. He was standing right behind Apollo as he was saying this, and Ricochet was basically agreeing.
It's like, Seti, you're going to have plenty of U.S. titles. You've already won. So Apollo is more determined than ever, and he will keep going after Bobby Lashley. Ricochet says that what they have is stronger than any dollar amount, and they proceed to walk into Raw Underground. The lambs being led to slaughter.
I mean, it was such a good, passionate promo from Apollo. You would certainly like maybe expect a different outcome than what we eventually got here.
We had Shelton versus Apollo Crews in Raw Underground. Crews tries for a slam, and it gets stopped. Crews ends up getting mounted, and he's eating strikes. Crews goes for this Kimura, and they roll to the floor, and the Hurt Business, Ricochet, and Cedric all get involved. They're brawling, and they all get into the ring. MVP's working for an arm triangle. The Hurt Business is just dominating these guys. Lashley they just wave it off. Cedric is done. Ricochet is suddenly unconscious, and Apollo
MVP choked him out.
Yeah, and Apollo was out too. So the Hurt Business stands tall and just wipe the floor with these three.
They just killed them. They killed
like no like hope spot, like valiant, like they didn't even go down swinging. They were beaten to a pulp. It was a 10-8 round in all three cases.
And I wouldn't even really say that the Hurt Business is like they cheated at all. I mean, it was like the advantage was just as much for the babyfaces as it was for the heels. They just got like beat down, and then choked out like chumps. You know, like I would have certainly said after like Payback that Apollo, okay, he's probably going to get a rematch against Bobby Lashley where he'll probably beat Bobby Lashley, right? Now I'm not so sure. Like this was a real dismantling of like this babyface team.
No, it's the kind of beatdown that only makes you feel like the heels are really like the cool act, and these are not babyfaces you're rooting for. Like you want to have confidence in the babyfaces you get behind.
Yeah, especially in a legitimate setting like this.
Yeah.
Or pretend legitimate, at least.
Garza is backstage with Demi, escaping danger. And Demi says, you kind of abandoned everyone out there. And he denies that. He's like, they're trained fighters. They don't need me. I'm only concerned with your safety. And then the door opens and there is Retribution. And dude, Garza just hightails it, leaving Demi. I thought this was hilarious.
It was really funny.
This was very funny. Just immediately drops Demi. She is left there staring at these attackers. And then she runs off. Retribution didn't even have the inclination or desire to chase either of them down. They're just there. And I don't even know what Retribution did. Like they returned to the building, but that was it.
I mean, at this point,
maybe they forgot something.
Right. I don't know. At this point, how threatening would you really say Retribution are? I mean, like they do a good job of I guess, like having everybody, like the announcers bail. That part's kind of cool. But this was almost just them being used as a punchline for a joke, wasn't it?
They were definitely the background noise for this segment, which, yeah, the point of this segment was just putting Garza as like the coward, which I thought was entertaining. But yeah, I think we're ready for kind of the next step of Retribution.
Yeah.
Kind of got to get this thing moving. And then Randy Orton, Keith Lee, and Seth Rollins was our final match of the night. Orton immediately goes to the floor and Rollins is protesting, saying, I thought we were going to work together. And Randy just yells, I already worked tonight. I already had a fight, which was awesome. So Rollins then goes to the floor. Orton says, I changed my mind about working together. They go through a break. Keith Lee is thrown into the steps, and he's pretty much got to work a 2-on-1 handicap match. Orton eventually turns on Rollins, hitting him with a draping DDT. The RKO gets turned into a Falcon Arrow, and then the Incredible Hulk makes his comeback. He hip tosses Rollins into Orton, pounces Orton, who flies to the floor, and then Rollins goes for a dive and is caught on the floor and dumped onto the desk. Back inside the ring, Rollins catches him with a super kick, but as he goes for the stomp, Lee turns it into the Spirit Bomb, and Orton sneaks back in, RKO to Keith Lee, and then goes for the cover on Rollins, who is still out from the Spirit Bomb. Orton pins Rollins, 11 minutes, 4 seconds, and they play up that if medically cleared, Drew McIntyre will face Randy Orton at Clash of Champions.
I thought they found it pretty clever out of this match. You know, you had Orton hit his move on Lee, but pinning Rollins instead. The insinuation is that he thinks Lee would kick out of his finisher, but Rollins wouldn't kick out of the Spirit Bomb. So you could still claim that Lee holds a pinfall over Orton and not the other way around. Rollins, perhaps the guy who can afford the loss the most out of the three. And, you know, I would say like Lee was still made to look like a monster who nearly won a handicap match, essentially. And, you know, I almost feel like after all this, you can still claim Keith Lee as the first challenger if Randy Orton wins the championship.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those, like, we don't want to beat Keith Lee, so we've got, like, the three-way gimmick to get around that, which is fine. I thought by the end of this, I think it kind of cooled the effect of last night, but it kind of just keeps Keith Lee. I mean, you're going to do something big with all the contenders. You have to have Keith Lee part of that, and they at least didn't beat him or anything like that. And I guess that's kind of where you're leaning towards. depending on like they're it's kind of weird what they're doing with Drew. Like I don't know what the story is here. What's going on? Like they didn't make it this definitive match for Clash of Champions, but that seems to be what they're going to advertise.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that this Raw it moved like I thought the pacing of Raw was pretty strong. Like they just had one thing after the other. They were constantly building to different things that were coming up. They were always keeping you engaged. I didn't think it was the most dynamic main event, but served its purpose. But I thought overall, like a Raw that I did not think like dragged all too often.
Yeah, I thought Raw was fine. Keith Lee continues to, I would say, coming off of last week's show and Payback, he definitely felt like a big presence on the show. If, sort of the net positive is that, hey, do we have a new main eventer? I would say so. I think they've done a good job of featuring him and spotlighting him. I mean, you could definitely debate whether or not he feels like, the guy, but he is one of the guys, I would say. So, yeah, that part is definitely debatable. But you built up to Randy Orton. I think the what is it, the little mini tournament thing, I thought they handled pretty decently well. You have, I really don't, at this point, understand what they're doing with Apollo getting dismantled like that by the Hurt Business, but, maybe, hey, I got to look at the full story, right? And perhaps the most interesting thing coming out of this is what exactly is going on with the IIconics.
What's going on with the IIconics? What's the timetable for Rey Mysterio? If it's a partial tear, I mean, that's still, going to be some time for him. Like that could be, 2 months or something. Perhaps less. We'll see what happens with Rey. If there's an update there, I guess if you're taking Rey out of the mix for the immediate future, Keith Lee and Seth Rollins could be a very solid pairing, and that would be.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could showcase a lot with Keith Lee with an opponent like Seth Rollins.
Yeah, that would be great. Now, if neither are champions, is that something you would do at the pay-per-view?
Yeah, right. We do have. You could still do a non-title match at Clash of Champions.
Maybe they'll pivot to like Keith Lee versus Bobby Lashley. Because Apollo, I don't know. I don't know if he's getting that rematch.
He might not make it that far. What if Keith Lee and Seth Rollins decided to form a tag team that they don't get along with each other?
I mean, those are the best stories, aren't they?
Yeah, it's very important. Like Keith Lee is not this cemented in stone main eventer. This period is very important for him. It was very good handling of him on Sunday. I thought it was fine tonight, but this is a very important period that you want to establish him as that guy. And if he is not involved in the title picture going into Clash of Champions, it's having him in a suitable role for that show.
Yeah.
So let us head to the forum.postwrestling.com. And tonight you gave this Raw a 3.94.
Ooh.
That was very low. I would say tonight, it's not like we had any blow away great wrestling on this show. I thought it moved though. And that usually most weeks is my ultimate factor with Raw is how well was the show paced. And I thought tonight was better than some weeks.
I think at least one person might have voted 0 based on the IIconics breaking up.
Well, again, we don't know what they were facing. If this was something that just came out of nowhere and they had to do this, I mean, you have to give them some leeway there. I don't think this is something where they just said, hey, you know what? Let's break up the IIconics. We have no build up.
Yeah, but that shit's happened, John. Like on a whim. That stuff like that has happened. So I certainly wouldn't have given them the benefit of the doubt unless there was a bigger, unless I found out that there was a bigger story.
Okay, and we don't know, right? It would be certainly if this is strictly a snap decision, then yeah, that deserves plenty of criticism for just breaking up an act with nothing behind it. But if there is some other story, like we just don't know. So
anyway, when I say that at least one person would have voted 0, I think we all know who we're referring to. Paul from New Jersey. Santa Claus isn't real. The Tooth Fairy is just some creep, and the IIconics are no more. Life is a lie. I can only hope this means Peyton Royce is getting a singles push, but I fear for a one William K. Might only be a matter of time before she's dancing in the underground or chasing Tozawa. This is what it's like when doves cry. A -7 out of 10.
Boy, I'm glad we don't have minuses. That would certainly skew the poll. MJ, first and foremost, condolences to my state mate, Paul from New Jersey. You said something so true on the Payback post-show. The WWE is in a weird way benefiting from no fans. I at least am enjoying it more. Keith Lee should feel like a big deal after beating Orton, and when we came out tonight, I believed he was. A lukewarm reaction in some random city on a summer night shouldn't detract from feeling like he's a big deal on this roster. Now that they've figured out a set that works, it's given a new lease on life to these shows. I also see Lee winning the title by Mania, if not sooner. I think they are going all the way with him, and if they don't, what a missed opportunity to do something impactful with him. Quick note on commercials. I am getting a real CM Punk Heyman vibe from Roman and Heyman, and I love it. TNA has been running some cool new spots during the playoffs he wrote TNA here, he means TNT, has been running some cool new spots during the playoffs for Dynamite. In a weird way, I'm back in on weekly TV. May have something to do with being back in New York. Watching wrestling is extremely habitual.
All right, welcome back. We go up next to Muggin, who says, Raw was a solid start to the Clash of Champions build-up. I'm curious about Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, whether or not they're going to thrive on their own as they're no longer a team. Retribution still hasn't struck a chord with me. Dominik Mysterio is quickly making an impression after 3 matches. I enjoyed Keith Lee versus Ziggler. Dolph selling made Keith look terrific. Aleister Black, Kevin Owens is shaping up to be a feud that'll benefit them both. And the booking in the main event was logical as it progressed the Drew-Randy feud, and it keeps Keith looking strong. 6 out of 10.
Nick from Lansing, breaking up the IIconics was a mistake. Wasted story options, and if they wanted a match with that stipulation, it should have been built up more than just at the beginning of the episode. Rest of the show was all right, and even Raw Underground feels like it's starting to find its feet.
We go to John from Detroit, who says, I thought WWE had some momentum going tonight, but tonight felt like they were back to the same old. Keith Lee with a typical Raw speak promo, 4 Randy Orton segments 2 weeks in a row is a bit much. Marina Shafir, where does somebody buy pants like that? I sure wish Raw Underground would have hired different cameramen. The continuous camera cuts is nauseating. I can't remember when this became Kevin Dunn's go-to, but hopefully he goes back. On a positive note, the Beat Down Clan or her company has looked good and just can't figure out where this is actually going.
And the last one here is Adam, who writes, Hey, John and Wai, pretty solid episode that didn't drag over 3 hours. I'm more and more impressed with Liv Morgan as the months go by. I feel Seth is back on top of his game again the last couple of months. Angel Garza bailing on Demi made me laugh out loud and was the highlight of the show for me. I'm not a big fan of fantasy booking, but if Brock happens to re-sign with WWE, he'd be an amazing fit with the Hurt Business. Imagine Brock being paired with Lashley, MVP as a mouthpiece, and his history with Shelton Benjamin, especially since Heyman is paired with Roman currently.
I think that would really negate Bobby Lashley's role, as the monster. I'd rather see those two oppose one another.
Yeah, I mean, that is, that was the match that everyone thought was a layup when Lashley came back, but that was 2018. And within record time, that was a match that didn't have any appeal to it. And they have now built Lashley to a level that would be a match I think you could go to if that was a direction. But
yeah, you just reminded me of this Lashley run since his debut, showing his ass, being married to Lana.
Dude, he's had quite the trajectory.
His sisters.
Oh God, the sisters. Man, this guy has had a brutal run of things during this comeback.
Yeah, full Lashley is the least of his worries.
I'm telling you, when it was in TNA and now with the Hurt Business, MVP has done wonders.
Absolutely.
And not to give all the credit to MVP, Lashley has fit, but that is the role that works. And once they found it on Raw and let them do this, it's been the best utilization of Lashley. MVP has been a very underrated, high value signing this
Not
year.
Underrated on this show. We've been singing his praises.
No, I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, if you were to tell me in January MVP is going to come into WWE, you would probably shrug your shoulders and look at what a cameo turned into at Royal Rumble. Yeah. And it's turned into a great managerial / performer. I mean, he's been wrestling just as much. So it's been hands down the best utilization Shelton Benjamin has had since World's Greatest Tag Team.
Yeah, I mean, even if it means him like being in the 24/7 division, I at least he's on TV.
Hey, it sure beats Mama Benjamin or being thwarted against Triple H. So anyway, some good things going on with the Hurt Business. And that's going to wrap up Rewind to Raw, a very packed edition of the show. Lots of news, lots of stuff coming out of Raw. And we're going to come out of Raw and turn back the clock 29 years. We're going to go back to October 27th of 1991, Tuesday night, rewind away with Halloween Havoc 1991, featuring some fantastic vignettes breaking this up with, or promoting this show with Elvira.
Man, seeing Eric Bischoff dressed up as a as a vampire, dude, this show, like every frame of this show had something to offer. I'm having a lot of fun watching it.
Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone.
Oh my God, anyway. I won't get into the review prior to it, but anyway.
It's coming up on Tuesday night. It should be quite the review. So tune into that, and then we will be back here on this feed on Wednesday night with Rewind a Dynamite for the Go Home show, heading into All Out, which I forgot to mention this in the news, but they have added Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara to the pay-per-view in a Broken Rules match.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm. So Rick Knox is probably the referee.
Broken Rules.
That is it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back on Tuesday night.